What's up, Miss Vargas?
Not much. How are you?
I'm good. Sorry, I'm a little under the weather, but I'm still here to celebrate. Episode 2, we get to watch it. We're going to watch it live with everybody. How does that sound?
I'm excited to see what you pulled off in this one.
Miss Vargas has not seen the final product. You trust me that much?
We'll see after.
All right. Again, welcome everybody to Truth and Transparency. This pre-recorded episode is episode 2 of Innocent in Iowa. It is the Joe Cannon Project. This is episode 2. And again, I want to give a shout out to all the members, subscribers, moderators. If you guys are here for the first time, consider becoming a subscriber. It is completely free. Consider joining in the fight with Joe. Again, thank you for being here, Miss Vargas. So hopefully you enjoy the episode 2. Always in a documentary, it's like it starts off slow because you kind of gotta tell the background of it. So, but I thought I could pump in some booms to keep everybody like, engaged. And then we get to talk to you afterwards. So I mean, it's worth sticking around.
Maybe.
This case is out of Burlington, Iowa. So somebody asked there in chat. So Burlington, Iowa. And it's a 1993 case and wrongful conviction that Ms. Vargas has put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into. And then we're just going to try to pump it to help bring Joe home. So,
and he is currently housed in Iowa. He is in Anamosa State Prison in Iowa.
Cool. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for that, Heather. Appreciate you. Look at you getting the high fives and hugs going. All right, guys. We're going to mute ourselves. We're going to watch it with you guys, and then we will have our live discussion afterwards.
Hello, you have a call at no expense to you from Joe, an inmate at Anamosa State Penitentiary in Anamosa, Iowa. You must listen to this entire message before entering a selection to accept this.
Tell them.
Thank you so much.
No, your change.
It's like 3 cents.
That's 3 cents that could bring us good luck today.
Okay. Put this here. Because I need my laptop to be able to. Your thing is on. Yeah, it's recording.
Is it okay?
Did I not plug it in?
Is it okay to record you before this?
Stop fucking calling me that. Do you want the verdict, the trial date, the verdict, all that shit?
What was the trial date? August 17th.
Okay.
May 4th. This is when.
Here's what I need to know. Are you gonna be asking me questions?
Yeah, we're just gonna be talking like we are
We're gonna
here.
talk. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so where do you want me to start? Do you want me to start with the first crime, which is not that crime? It all comes into play together, which is why it's important to get it all from the beginning.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay.
So I don't even think it's beneficial to start with the jury trial.
Orly Culp was found by neighbors and friends inside his modest residence on 9th Street on the morning of May 8th, 1993 at approximately 9:30 a.m. He was beaten by a baseball bat, but he was still breathing. Francis Murphy ran to get the neighbors to call for help. That would be Greg Thompson and Kim McTee, the neighbors and friends that lived right next door to Orley Culp. Orly Culp would fight for his life until May 17th, 1993, when he was pronounced dead at the hospital. Joe Cannon would eventually be arrested, accused, and convicted of Orly Culp's murder by the end of September of 1993. 30 years later, here we are. Welcome to the Joe Cannon Project. I had the pleasure of getting to know and work with Gabriela Vargas on the Joe Cannon case, and we had to change up our gears, and literally I had to make Gabriela start from the beginning. You know, this is something that she's been doing for 11 months, and I had to say, hey, can we put the brakes on, and can we start from the top?
Turned out to be an informant for the Burlington PD.
Okay.
And we'll later find that he makes statements as a confidential informant, not disclosing the fact that he was actually part of the burglary.
Okay.
Okay? So he kind of got away with that.
So with this whole the Wendy's ordeal, go ahead. Just
I'm going to
continue.
tell you the
Yeah,
significance
okay.
of it.
We're gonna.
Okay? So Wendy's happened on May 4th, okay?
And now here we come
On
to
the late hours of May 7th or the early hours of May 8th, Orly Culp, who is a Caucasian 89-year-old male, was assaulted in his home.
Okay.
Okay? Ronald Weeman was the first person to locate him in the home.
Okay.
His wife called for an ambulance. And Ronald Weeman actually, Francis...
You know, they don't really say it here. Who is Ronald Weeman? Is he, because he's the first person to locate Culp? So, but, like, is he a neighbor or who is he?
No, so actually, this is a bit actually inaccurate. Francis Murphy is Orly Culp's friend, and they go to the auctions together. So on this particular day of May 8th, Francis Murphy is coming to pick up Orly Culp to go to the auction in the morning. And he sees that the back door has been broken into, and he's a bit scared to go.
Detective Cassidy in 1993 was one of the responding officers. You had Gaddis, Ken Gaddis, that was the first officer called to the scene, and then you had Detective Cassidy. Detective Cassidy's reports, Francis Murphy stated that the last time he had seen Orly was at 5:45 the evening before on 5/7/93, when he drove him to the auction barn, which is located on Agency. Francis said that he had dropped Orly off and that Scott Snyder, who also works for Francis, was supposed to bring him back home that evening. On this particular morning, at approximately 9:30 a.m. here on May 8th, Francis told Scott, as they were both at his store, Francis told Scott to call Orly and tell him that he was on his way over to pick him up, you know, because they were going to be going to another auction. When Francis arrived, he noticed that Orly was not in the yard like he usually is, ready to go. He then went back in the back of the house to the back door and noticed that the window was broken. Because of his health, he did not want to go into the residence alone. So he went out front and asked a Roland Wyman, who was delivering flowers across the street, to go in. As Detective Cassidy was getting Francis's statements, he was then ordered to ride with the ambulance and to go ahead and go to Burlington Medical Center at 10:25 a.m., and he stayed with Orly until he was transferred to Iowa City. Cassidy said that at 10:34 a.m. he received 2 Polaroid photographs and a telephone cord from Nurse Maureen. The phone cord was what was wrapped around Orly's right wrist when he was brought in. Orly's underwear and t-shirt were taken from Nurse Ann at 11:07 a.m. and placed into Cassidy's custody. Numerous Polaroids and 35mm photographs were taken of Orly's injuries while he was at Burlington Medical Center by Cassidy himself. Cassidy said that at 11:48 a.m. Orly was transferred to Iowa City by Air Care. While this is going on at Burlington Medical Center, Detective Grimshaw is conducting pictures from the outside, the interior of the crime scene, as well as doing neighborhood canvases. Detective Cassidy gets back to 9th Street to first have a brief interview with Kimberly McTee. Kim stated that she and her boyfriend Greg Thompson have known Orly for about 1 year and that they were buying the house from him on contract. Kim also stated that Greg handles Orly's business affairs and is very close to him. Kim is also very close to Orly and cleans his house from time to time. She commented that the baseball bat does belong to Orly and that he either leaves it by the front door or in his bedroom. The last time that Kim said that she saw Orly was at 11 p.m. the night before, when Orly was walking from his dining room to his kitchen and that he looked to be perfectly fine. Kim said that this morning when she had woke up and was playing with her dog around 6 a.m. out back, she didn't see anything out of place at Orly's. Detective Cassidy asked Kim who all works for Orly, and she gave Cassidy the following names: Donald McIntyre, Charles Ford, and an unknown black male. Kim went on to say that Bertha, nicknamed Queenie, and a white male with the last name of Conger also visit Orly from time to time. After Cassidy quickly interviewed Kim McTee, he had a brief interview with Greg Thompson, that would be Kim's live-in boyfriend. Greg stated that he went over to Orly's house at around 10 p.m. that night before on 5/7 to discuss Orly selling property at 1429 Thal. Orly told Greg that he was going to sell the property to a guy who owns Dylan's restaurant for $16,000. Greg stated that he only stayed at Orly's for about 10 minutes and then left, but before leaving, he made sure that Orly locked his back door. At approximately 11 p.m. on the same date, Greg said that he saw Orly walk from his dining room to his kitchen and commented to his girlfriend Kim, "Hey, Orly must be going to get a snack." Greg said that on 5/6, while he, along with Terry Chesmore and Stephanie Dixon, were at Orly's when Bertha, aka Queenie, called, wanting to rent a house that Orly owned on South 4th. Bertha now rents from a woman by the name of Dixie. Greg only knows Dixie because she gives him massages. Greg explained that Bertha has known Orly for a long time and does come over to perform sexual favors for Orly. Greg feels that Bertha is stealing from Orly and could be the link to this incident. Greg stated that the black male who robbed Orly before has been coming over asking for money, and he could also be a suspect. Donald McIntyre, who worked for Orly, was contracted by Greg and was told that Orly had been beaten up. When Donald was told, he replied that he had better get his money back for the work that he's done. That was all from Greg Thompson in Cassidy's initial neighborhood canvass. While Cassidy was at the residence on 5/8, doing his neighborhood canvass, Donald Wayne McIntyre shows up, and Donald came over to Orly's to find out what had happened to Orly. Donald said that on 5/7, the day before, Orly called him and wanted a ride over to 1429 Thal because he was meeting a person who was interested in the property. Donald did take Orly over to 1429 Thal and stayed there for approximately 10 to 15 minutes and then left. Donald described the guy that met with Orly as being a white male, approximately 30 years old, short with brown hair, and drives a van. At around 11 a.m., Orly called Donald and asked him why he didn't come back and pick him up. Donald replied that he thought the guy that was looking at the house was going to bring him back. Orly told Donald that he walked to the Hungry Bear and then went home. Orly also told Donald that he was to clean up 1429 Thal because the guy was going to buy it. Cassidy, after taking those 3 brief interviews from Kim, Greg, and then Donald just miraculously showing up, he then continued on his neighborhood check. and he went to 901 Spruce. It was a gentleman named Dennis. Dennis said that the last time he had seen Orly was on 5/6, and that Orly was out walking. Dennis got home late night around 8 p.m. and did not see or hear anything. The last person that Dennis seen over at Orly's was a David Welcher, who was seen on 5/6 knocking at the front door. Cassidy then approaches apartment 713, apartment 2, right next door, and there's a Patricia that is in the same residence as Kim and Greg, just in a different section of that house. It was split up into 3 apartments, the big house was. Patricia had not seen Orly for a couple of days and said that on 5/7, while she was sitting on her front porch at about 10:45 p.m., 2 black males walked southbound past her residence. While the black males walked by her residence, they were looking at everyone else's houses. Continuing on, Cassidy went to 717, met with a Norman. Norman stated that he did not see or hear anything. Then he went to 717, Meta. She stated that she did not hear anything. Then he went over to 714, 10th Street. Elderly lady didn't hear anything. Then he was back on 10th Street, 719, 10th Street, South 10th Street. Met with a Janet. Janet said that she went for a walk around 12:30 a.m. down by the south end of the alley and did not hear or see anything. Still on 10th Street, 710 South 10th Street, Warren. Warren was up at 2:40 a.m. and 4 a.m. and owns 2 dogs. Warren said that if anyone is in the alley by his dogs, they will bark. And they didn't last night. 706 South 10th Street, there was a Vivian. She didn't hear anything or see anything. There was a Gertrude at 700 South 10th Street. And this would be the street that backs up to 9th Street. There's an alley between 9th and 10th. Alan from 700 South 9th Street. Alan said that around 12 a.m. on 5/8 going into that early morning hours, he was out calling his cats when he saw 3 black males walking in the area. Alan also commented that a black male was working for Orly and that he had not seen him around in a while. So he asked Orly what had happened. Orly said that he caught him stealing, so he fired him. On 704, at 704 South 9th Street, there was a Sherman and a Mary. Mary was the one who called the ambulance, but besides that, she and her husband did not see or hear anything. 706 South 9th Street, no one lives there. 712 South 9th Street, Darrell said that he was not home last night, and he did not know Orly really well. There was a 818 Cedar. There was a Lola that Cassidy ended up talking to, the last person in the neighborhood canvas, and Lola said that she was home all night but did not see or hear anything. As Cassidy was doing the neighborhood canvassing and before that went to the hospital, you have Detective Grimshaw, who was at the scene taking the pictures in the interior and the exterior, and then also went ahead and did the walk around and did the videoing, the taping of the residence. After that is when Grimshaw, with the assistance of Detective Cassidy, investigator Brett Grimshaw from the Des Moines County Sheriff's Department, those 3 began collecting pieces of evidence from the interior of the residence. Grimshaw says to see a detailed description, please refer to his report labeled Evidence Collected. I always pay attention to the dates of reports. So this incident was on 5/8. The report that Grimshaw writes up is dated 5/17/93. And this is going to matter. That report came from the notes, came from the videoing, came from the pictures, but this final typed up report that happens on 5/17, it is the same date that Orly Culp passes, as well as other things. I noticed that at the conclusion of this report, Grimshaw says at approximately 6 p.m. on 5/8 that he did give county attorney Pat Jackson, who would end up prosecuting this case, a tour through the residence to show him the interior of the residence and the location of the assault. Grimshaw stated that he, Patrick Jackson, was at the residence for about 5 or 10 minutes, and that Grimshaw remained at the scene until approximately 6:40 p.m. Okay, again, I'm laying out this timeline, and Grimshaw stated that he went ahead and did a report that had everything timestamped, and he did. On 5/8/1993 by Detective Grimshaw is a supplemental narrative report that the following is an itemized list of all evidence, and it's listed the exhibit number as well as the timestamp. So I was marking down the timestamps, which began at 2:25 p.m. And at 2:25 p.m., numerous pieces of paper, pages from the book's calendar that contained names, phone numbers, that was collected. At 2:27, 4 phone books were collected. At 2:36, a wallet was collected. Also a $50 money order. At 2:30, a General Electric telephone recovered, so one of the telephones. At 2:32, another General Electric telephone base was recovered in a living room. 2 white envelopes taken from the living room floor, southeast corner. That's at 2:41. At 2:43, they began on the plexiglass. 1 piece of plexiglass from the side door. This particular piece of plexiglass was recovered from the floor under a chair in the kitchen and has a dust shoe print on the glass. It was collected at 2:43. G2 is 1 piece of plexiglass from the side door collected at 3:22. So it goes from 2:43 to 3:22. And I noted this big gap in time, followed by at 3:24, 1 piece of the plexiglass collected at 3:24, 1 piece of the plexiglass which is partial heel print on it. It has a partial heel print on it. And that was recovered at 3:25. And then 1 piece of plexiglass which was recovered from the door by removing wooden strips, and there's no time stamp on that one on G5. Then G6, 1 piece of plexiglass located behind the door on the floor next to the microwave cart was collected at 6:40 p.m. And that's the same time that he says he's leaving. Is at 6:40 p.m. is when he is leaving the residence. I noted that after they had moved on from the plexiglass, beginning at 3:33, they moved on to there's 1 pair of green pants with red and gray suspenders with a black colored belt. It was an item recovered from the floor of the living room, and it was partially in the bedroom of Orly Culp. Those pants contained blood stained and were recovered by Detective Grimshaw at, again, 3:33. 3:43, 1 wooden baseball bat. This baseball bat has recovered from the bed, and it also had blood on it. There was a hair collected from the bat, labeled Exhibit I, which was recovered at 3:43 by Detective Grimshaw. This item was recovered with the assistance of Detective Cassidy. Now, that is going to be very, very important because that puts Detective Cassidy in the residence at 3:43. Like he stated, there was 3 of them, Detective Cassidy, Grimshaw, and then a man, Brent Grimshaw, from the sheriff's office. Those 3 were the people that were allegedly collecting this evidence together. At 3:52, 1 pillow with blue and red flowers, and it was a cover collected by Detective Grimshaw, and also a light blue, white, and dark blue strip pillowcase was recovered from Detective Cassidy at 3:52. Items located in the bedroom on the bed of Orly Culp. No mention of blood K, here is one pillow with blue and red flower with a white cover and has a light blue and white striped pillowcase on it. There are blood spatters on both sides of the pillowcase. Again, that was with Detective Grimshaw and Cassidy's help at 3:56. One green and white towel recovered from the bed. Recovered by Detective Grimshaw. This is letter L. Cassidy and Grimshaw at 4 p.m. No mention of blood on this towel. M is one brown and green flowered bedspread recovered by Detective Grimshaw at 4 with the assistance of Cassidy. Again, no mention of blood. N, one blue and white bedspread recovered by Detective Grimshaw at 4:03. Assistance of Cassidy. There was bloodstains. O is one set of bedding, including a green and white blanket and 2 white sheets recovered from the bed of Orly at 4:10. Again, both Grimshaw and Cassidy. P is one light brown plastic bag, one white piece of paper with the name Russell Krieger on it and his address, one white envelope with the name Orley Culp on the front. All of these things were labeled P. One red colored checkbook. Detective Cassidy and Grimshaw moved into the den where Exhibit P was continued, and there was more, a real estate auction brochure with an auction barn newspaper clipping, white envelope with a return address of Boatman's Trust Company, one blue Burlington Bank and Trust Company bank bags. Again, those items were all collected at 4:21 p.m. in the den. Q is one checkbook box bottom, white in color with what appears to be glove prints, and that was at 4:31, so 10 minutes later. R is one white phone cord recovered at Burlington Medical Center, collected by Detective Cassidy and transferred to Detective Grimshaw. Does not have a timestamp on when he handed that to him. I'm assuming, after the 4:31 mark. S, there's nothing there. T is one blue pair of pants and a black belt, one brown and white striped shirt, one green shirt. Items were recovered by Detective Grimshaw at 6:40 p.m. from the floor in Orly Culp's bedroom. 6:40 is the same time that he is leaving and that he is also collecting the evidence of the last piece of plexiglass. So he's doing 3 things at one time. The plexiglass last piece, he's locking up, and he's collecting the one blue pair of pants and a black belt and a brown and white striped shirt and one green shirt. These were all items recovered by Detective Grimshaw at 6:40 p.m. from the floor in Orly Culp's bedroom. If you're doing collecting of scene, the evidence at the scene rather, why wouldn't you be doing each room by each room? Why would you be going back to the bedroom now to get Exhibit T here at 6:40? Again, 2 hours after the last documented piece. We get down to the last 2 letters of these exhibits, U and V. U is one pair of underwear and one t-shirt with bloodstain on them, and those were items collected by Cassidy at Burlington Medical Center. But there is no timestamp as to when he handed them to Grimshaw. And then V is latent fingerprint collected by Detective Grimshaw from a filing cabinet. A drawer front was located in the den of Orley Culp's residence. That latent print was dusted with black fingerprint powder and then lifted with fingerprint tape and secured to a white card labeled Exhibit V. Again, no timestamp. This finalized report by Detective Grimshaw was dated 5/8/93 was when it was typed up, and then 5/10/93 at 2:17 p.m. It was easy when I went ahead and looked at this itemized and time-stamped efforts by the police department that we had some issues. We had police officers saying that they were in multiple places at the same time. And we have police officers saying that they're collecting multiple pieces of evidence at the same time. But the biggest thing that we have, and not only do we have detectives being at multiple places at the same time, collecting multiple pieces of evidence at the same time, but we have gaps within the timestamps of the collection of the evidence. The biggest gap is between 4:30 and 6:40 p.m. What were Detective Grimshaw, Detective Cassidy doing between 4:30 and 6:40 p.m. on May 8th, 1993? When I went back and read over those quick interviews done by Cassidy on 5/8/1993, as well as Grimshaw, something stuck out to me, and it had everything to do with the day before Orly Culp meeting with Don McIntyre, having him pick Orly Culp up and take him to a property to then meet with a gentleman that owned Dylan's restaurant. I thought it was very convenient that just Donald McIntyre would just show up at Orly Culp's residence asking and wondering what happened to Orly. How was he notified that Orly had been injured? At 3:15 p.m. on 3/8, Grimshaw would fill out and type up a report when he interviewed Dylan's restaurant owner. And the timestamp, 5/8 at 3:15 p.m., would be right in the middle of Grimshaw collecting evidence at the scene. He said that he had never left, and he was there from the time that he arrived around 11 a.m. until 6:40 p.m. And here is a report that he typed up where he is at Dylan's restaurant at 3:15 p.m., 5/8/1993, to interview Tony Brunin at Dylan's restaurant. How is that possible? Why would interviewing the Dylan's restaurant owner be so vital? And this would also prove that in order for them to know that Orly Culp met with the Dylan's owner, they would have had to talk to Don McIntyre prior to 3:15 p.m. on 5/8, because that's who notified the police about the Dylan's restaurant owner and Orly Culp meeting with him the day before at a property. So I went and compared the Dylan restaurant owner, Tony, and his interview, and I compared it to that of Donald McIntyre. So we know that Donald McIntyre had to have told Cassidy when he had that interview with him prior to 3:15 p.m. In the Dylan's barbecue owner's interview, Tony Brunin, he said that, I asked Don if he knew of anyone who had a house for sale, and he gave me the name of Orly Culp. Brunin stated that he had called Mr. Culp at approximately 10 minutes till noon the day before and asked him if he had any houses for sale. Brunin stated that Orly told him he did have a house at 1429 Thal in Burlington. Brunin stated that Orly told him to come over as soon as possible and he would show him the house. Brunin said that he left Dylan's and went right over there. He stated that he met with Orly at 1429 Thal right at 12 noon. Brunin stated that he did look at the house and that the two of them discussed some prices, but could not come up with a definitive figure as far as the price of the house was concerned. He stated that Orly told him that he would sell on contract, and Brunin then handed Orly the Dylan's barbecue menu and told him that if he decided on a price to get a hold of him at Dylan's. Brunin stated that he then left about 15 or 20 minutes after that when he had originally gotten there, and then Brunin stated that he hadn't heard from him since. I then went back and pulled Donald Wayne McIntyre's brief interview with Cassidy. And on 5/8/1993, Donald came over to Orly's to find out what had happened. Donald said that on 5/7, the day before, Orly called him and wanted a ride over to 1429 Thal because he was meeting a person who was interested in the property. Donald did take Orly over to 1429 Thal and stayed there for approximately 10 or 15 minutes and then left. Donald described the guy that they met with, that Orly was meeting with, was a white guy, approximately 30 years old, short with brown hair, and drives a van. But what he also stated was that around 11 a.m. was when Orly called Donald and asked him why he didn't come back and pick him up. Donald replied that he thought the guy that was looking at the house was going to bring him home. The only problem with this is that at 11 a.m., nothing was over yet because the meeting wasn't until 12. Orly told Donald that he had walked then to the Hungry Bear and then went home. Orly also told Donald that he was to clean up 1429 Thal because the guy was going to buy it. Again, Orly and the guy from Dillon's, he never said that he was going to buy it. And it wasn't at 11 a.m. This meeting didn't happen for another hour after that. So Orly couldn't have called anybody saying, why'd you leave me at 11 a.m.? Because the meeting hadn't even happened yet. What is up, Miss Vargas?
Not much.
Very, very nice production there. You had me laughing a couple of times.
Oh, that beginning part gets you?
Well, yes, the Miss Vargas, when I tell you to quit fucking calling me that, that was pretty comical. I didn't realize that was going to be a part of the show.
Oh, you know it. That intro. I just like those little one-liners. Stop fucking calling me that. Can I record you, Miss Vargas?
You should. Yeah. Well, and they didn't get to see, but the Wendy's drive-through. I actually was trying to ask the lady at the window if she would let me climb through the window and reenact the scene, but you wouldn't let me.
We'll show that part again for those of you guys that missed it at the beginning. Here you go.
You have a call at no expense to you from...
So Miss Vargas here wanted to reenact climbing through the Wendy's window. Wanted me to ask this woman if we could just, middle of lunch, hey, can we just do a reenactment really quick?
An inmate at Anamosa State Penitentiary in Anamosa, Iowa. You must listen to this entire message before answering a selection to accept it.
Tell them.
Thank you so much.
No,
We're trying to reenact a murderer. Can I just climb through your? And you're like,
3 cents.
I'm like, come on, we gotta go.
Yeah, you didn't even want to get your change. I was like, at least wait for that.
Yeah. Yes. So yes, hello to the audience there. What is good? What is good? What questions do you have so far? We kind of want to just keep it about what's happened up to this point. That way, everybody that's following can understand what's good. And Ms. Vargas, I'll highlight the questions and you can just go ahead and answer them.
I want to say one thing as I was kind of watching the comments. I understand that there has been a lot of information in this episode, a lot of different names and times, and you'll definitely see in the upcoming episodes why some of these things are crucial and important. The one thing that I want, while you guys are getting your questions together, I want to point out that is extremely crucial, in addition to everything that you had pointed out. The first piece of plexiglass that is collected, which is about, I believe, 2:43 p.m., is a piece that is underneath the kitchen table. Now the plexiglass broke in 6 pieces. 1 stayed in the window, and 5 pieces were on the floor, 3 of which being underneath the table. The first piece collected at 2:43, and the last piece of plexiglass being collected at 6:40 p.m. And it's literally 2 pieces, the first and the last piece, that were right next to each other underneath the table. It is also the 2 pieces that we assume at least one of them had the footprint on.
Actually, it's not. The last piece that was collected is the one that's by the microwave at 6:40. 1 piece of plexiglass located. It's by the door on the floor next to the microwave cart. So I noted that though, but it is at 6:40. It does have that gap.
There's another.
This piece.
So if there was 1 piece in the door, there's 3 pieces that are underneath the table, 2 of which had footprints on them. So the ones that had the footprints on them were not collected at the same time, though.
Yeah. It says.
Yeah.
So
that
it
says there's dust. Yeah.
It goes. It just what it does is it's really vague about it. It says 1 piece of plexiglass from this is the side door. This particular piece of plexiglass was recovered from the floor under a chair in the kitchen and had a dust.
That's under the dining room table. And there's, if you look in the video or the pictures, there's 3 pieces there, and both pieces with the footprint were collected from there. They just weren't collected at the same time. I got my times mixed up. But that to me is a very crucial piece of information. There was also, I mean, I guess we can let your audience ask the questions, but things about what was taken and whatnot is also important.
Yeah. I think here at the 322 and 324 mark, what they do is they don't even say where it's at. They say 1 piece of plexiglass from the side door collected at, 1 piece of plexiglass collected at. They don't even give where it's actually located, G2 and G3. So they're just saying a partially, it's all a bunch of crap, but this is right in that time frame where, also he's supposedly interviewing Dylan at the restaurant, the Dylan's at 3:15. So it's in between that 3:24 and 3:22. Oh, what? He just leaves the crime scene to go interview at Dylan's restaurant? Yeah, no. And then there's so it's that gap the gap that I think is just wow is they're not doing anything from 4:30 to 6 like 4:30 to 6:40. So it's like 2 hours worth of what are you doing? And that's where I think that's where all this fix is setting in. Like the setup with, all right, we got to get, if you go through the camera, there's no dust. You can't see, Grimshaw makes it seem like you can see this from the naked eye. And when the time comes, when Kilgorn, the actual lab rat worker, he says that you needed a special light to see that. So it's
if you recall, we have one detective who claims that at the entryway of the kitchen from the dining room, he could clearly see a footprint on the plexiglass that was underneath a table and behind literally a chair that was obstructing his view. So he has pretty phenomenal eyeballs. We saw in the video, we couldn't see it. The other thing that I find very interesting is that there is some testimony in which Kilgore says this is if you put the 2 pieces of plexiglass together, you get a full shoe print. That is not true. You have the heel on one part and you have the toe part on the other part. So if the idea is that the glass was kicked in, that shoe print would be even, you know, if the middle piece is missing, then there should be another piece of plexiglass with the middle part of the shoe on it. It makes it much more obvious that this was stepped on after it was already broken and on the floor, as opposed to the way they believe it happened.
Yeah, just total fucking I mean, uh, yeah, it's I think at 640, you're doing three things. You know, you're collecting bloody clothes allegedly, right here at 640. And then this is just on the ground and it has no blood on it. Any of this clothing has any blood. S, we don't even fucking know what S is. Like, what? We don't even know what that is. And 640 locking up, collecting bloody clothes.
There,
and then
if you go up to, I think if you went back to, I think it was Q, where it says the checkbook, things like that are quite interesting. The red box top to the checkbook, how did they even know that that was missing? How did they presume that he didn't just throw it away on his own? There's a lot of inferences that are made here. Also, let's think about something. Joe is at the time a crack addict and he just wants money. He doesn't hurt people. Yes, he admits he steals, but he had money from just stealing from the Wendy's. He admits that he was part of that crime, right? We see in the evidence that there was $207 left behind in the auction wallet in the closet that was pretty much in plain sight. If this is Joe looking for money, why didn't he take the money? You see from the pictures, this is a man who is beaten, very, very horrible beating. And if you look in the office in particular, you will see that the office, the drawers are taken out. Now, I'm not a burglar. I've never done it before, but I would presume I'm in a hurry. I'm going to take stuff out and things are going to go flying. If you look in this particular case, they're looking for something specific. They're taking drawers out, but they're not throwing the contents out, almost as if they're looking for a key or a hidden, maybe something for the safe, a code for the safe or something. They also have most of the content from the drawers still in the drawers, which I find to be very interesting if you're just going to steal things. The other thing is that a lot of mail appears to be open and possibly read or at least gone through. It's not typical that people would read your mail while they're robbing your house and beating you. So very odd circumstances.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was trying to find that towel. There's the bat.
The towel's another interesting thing. I mean, who sleeps with a towel in their bed? So
yeah,
he's
like
got
laid
this
out
towel,
like that.
but it's got no blood on it. You know, we could presume a lot of things. We've got, how about the pillowcase cover? Kilgore says there's another shoe print on this pillowcase cover, but it doesn't match the shoe print that we find on the plexiglass. So clearly we know that somebody else had to have been there.
Yeah. And I think opening this bottom drawer, like where this is, like that is just such a weird location to open that bottom drawer, like that goes right up against this bed. Like, where were you standing when you opened up that? You know what I mean? Like the bed.
Well, the other thing I see, somebody's asking, did perhaps the officer step on the plexiglass and break it? The plexiglass was broken from the first person that arrived on scene, Francis Murphy. But the important part of the plexiglass shoe print is that it matches the same shoe print that was found on a manila envelope in the Wendy's robbery several days before. these are from the same shoes that are found at Joe Cannon's residence outside of his residence by the trash can. Joe Cannon knows these shoes, these Spalding tennis shoes. Many people have informed the police who these shoes belong to. These shoes, I will say, are going to be the primary item that convicts Joe. There was no DNA linking him to this crime whatsoever. There was nothing linking him to this crime other than these tennis shoes that we know, based on his own story, who they belong to. And not to mention the fact that these are a whole size smaller than what Joe wears. They're not his shoes.
Yeah. It's wild.
But we do know whose shoes they are, per not only Joe, but per many other people we've spoken to. The shoes belong to Greg Thompson, also known as Kenny Stone. We know that he leaves them at Joe's house. Joe's wife is not okay with this, so Joe goes and puts them out by the garbage can after the Wendy's robbery. We know that Greg Thompson lives.
These are all
right
things that were
next door
happening in
to
episode
Orly.
1 for those people that are wondering. In episode 1, Joe talked about what he did with the Wendy's, what happened on the Wendy's night, which was 5/4/93. So that's in episode 1 about the Wendy's.
Yeah. And someone had said, well, Joe's DNA won't be in the shoes then. Well, you're gonna find out later on why we cannot have the shoes tested now, because we will find Joe's DNA in them, unfortunately.
Yeah, because of something that happened in court.
During
It's
his
wild.
trial.
Yep.
What?
Did they test inside the shoe? No, they did. The only thing that they did in this case, of all of this evidence, of all of these clothing, the sheets, everything, they did footprint impression comparison with the shoes that were found during the search warrant execution at Joe's residence to these to the plexiglass, and linked it to the Wendy's manila envelope. And they lifted a few palm and fingerprints, which do not match Joe and do not match the victim. And that is something we're working on right now but that is literally the only evidence that they tested in this case.
Yeah, I mean they didn't even something that I just think is crazy is what wasn't taken. They didn't do any of the doorknobs. They didn't try to lift anything off the doorknobs. They didn't do anything with any of the windows. They didn't do anything in the kitchen. If people are being interviewed and has people over massaging him and giving him sexual favors, well, wouldn't you think maybe to, I don't know, test any of the stuff that was in the kitchen to see if a lady friend came over? Also the bathroom. I mean, there's no prints leaving this house. No, barefoot prints, tennis shoe prints, no blood leaving this house. So did we check the bathroom? Did we test to see did somebody clean up? Did somebody feel like they had a bunch of time in there? Because, but the bathroom, wasn't tested. I don't know how a towel could be on the bed and not have any blood on it if it's not part of a cleanup. If it's not part of something that you wouldn't see if I'm trying to wipe off a bat, let's say, for example, maybe just the bottom of the bat, if I'm trying to wipe prints off that. But I don't understand how they want to talk about everything that they took. Well, let's talk about everything that's there that they didn't take. And you brought up a good point about like the mail. There's actually a mail like opener sitting out on the kitchen, or not the kitchen table, but the
Living room table.
yeah,
The
it's
coffee
out
table.
in the coffee table. And it's that room is like perfectly like that room's like not even, it's like perfect. It's like a stage room almost. And then the other thing is this guy, like we were saying, he wears his glasses in all of his pictures. He's a glasses wearer. Like he's not just a wear it if I need my cheaters to do my crossword puzzles. This guy takes all of his pictures with his glasses on. And so I'm just curious to know, where were his glasses? I get it. Like that would also help me to know, like, did he take them off because he went to bed? I would think that the glasses would be in the kitchen, or not the kitchen, but the bedroom. You take your glasses off and you put them on your your nightstand or your dresser. I guess maybe in the kitchen, or not the kitchen, but the table, like the living room table. But I would think an older guy, he's probably blind, like he needs them all the way to get into bed. Should I need mine?
And the other thing is we don't know. So I'm speculating, but if the timeline is correct and 11 p.m. is the last time that he is seen alive going to get a snack, I don't think cooking eggs at 11 o'clock at night is a desirable snack. But I know many elderly who by 3 a.m. are wide awake. That's the time they wake up. So it's more reasonable to assume that that might have been breakfast that was on, the eggs that were on the table. If you notice on the plate, there is also a small amount of scrambled egg left on the plate. So it seems as though he did eat. What we know about Orly is that Orly did not discriminate just because you were of a different race or different class than him. Yes, he owned many properties, but this was pretty much throughout his latter years of life after he retired from his career. And at the time of his death, he only owned, I believe it was about 8 to 10 properties. He had sold many of them off. Many of them he bought in short sales or from other people that had died. And, he turned a quick dollar on them. But the other thing is that he helped people. He had he was not traditional by any means. He had his tenants going to the bank and depositing their rent into his account so that he didn't have to do it. He has many tenants who are late in their rent, or there's some sort of issue that he's having with them. We also know that he has been robbed more than once. Some of which we know who the person was that robbed him. And the other ones we find out from other people who it was. But everybody knew this man had money. The other thing is that he went to the auction. And a big thing is the night before he went to the auction, he wasn't feeling very good. He went to go lay down. But that the day that he was found beaten, he planned to go to the auction as well. The auction was cash only. So we know that there had to have been more than $207 in that house, because he went, according to Mary Lou Capps, who texted him to the bank. We know that he got cash out because he was going to the auction. So there's a lot to digest here. I think you can make a lot of inferences about what happened, and I think that he was too trusting and people took advantage of him.
Yeah, I want to try to blow that up right there. It's too dark.
The one
Like
thing
that's
I
just
think we
that's just not what we
Mhm.
saw. Like that is not you know, that's just it's sad.
no, and
you can tell if you compare that with the other one, you know, and you kind of have to do a side by side with essentially the shoes, but you can see this is a partial and the
Mhm.
other is a partial. This is not a full print, and it's only on 2 pieces out of 6. I think another thing that you uncovered in the reading was something about, I don't know if it was the curtain or whatnot, was it was outside, which we found really odd because if you
Yeah.
kick a window in, the curtain's definitely going to be inside. How is it this? And I understand the whole concept of like, well, the wind could have blown it, but you have to remember we have this exterior premise and then we have this almost sunroom right before we get to the kitchen, so the wind is not blowing in the sunroom per se, so the fact that it's facing the other way is quite interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Also the I mean it's going to come up in the later episodes, but this stuff would not even be questioned by the defense attorney. None of this. And that's just unbelievable. It's let me put this out there. There's only 577 pages of transcripts in this man's murder trial. 577 pages. 577. That is like that's nothing. Absolutely nothing. Davon Cox's
Well, the other thing is that we've got in Iowa, you have 10 days before trial starts, before the start of, the first day, you have to have all of your people deposed, right? And we have people that are still being deposed at the start of trial. Like that,
Yeah,
that's like
during
not
the
even
trial.
okay. I don't even.
Yeah, during the trial. Like it's what comes up in this is just.
I think Noah Johnson was 5 days before trial started. They got Noah Johnson, and then there's others that after trial starts, they're still deposing them, which is just it's beyond me how they allowed this to happen. I just don't understand. We have no objections from Mr. Wapples, who goes on later to get sanctioned by the bar and loses his right to practice law twice, short period of time. If you look up these detectives, I just was reading right now, which I thought that this was comical. Grimshaw actually just retired in 2020, and it says Grimshaw is also a member of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People and was honored in 2018 with their Citizen Award. His people that are working with him, his other detectives, one of them got fired. We've got another one who was forced into retirement for corruption and some other stuff. I don't know. I feel like there's just so much corruption going on here. It's really unfortunate, and I want to expose it. I want to expose it all. I want these people to be held accountable. I want to know how a man can be convicted of murder with no evidence linking him to the crime, except for a pair of tennis shoes that are a size too small for him.
Yeah. And I don't know how you get prints when you got freaking dirt all over them, like, right? Like, but more importantly, where's their blood? Wouldn't there be blood all over these shoes that was in a house like that?
Well, yeah, you would, and I think part of Kilgore's, testimony, there was, he says, blood when he special light, which again, I want to call bullshit, because why can't we see it?
That was on
then?
the Wendy's
We can't
one.
see the print.
The Wendy's envelope here.
That one had blood on it.
Yeah, he's saying that there was blood on the Wendy's envelope. Let me see if I can zoom in.
That's the piece of mail from Orly's that has the fingerprint on it.
Oh, well, here, let me. Is that the
thought he
one?
said that there was he further examined it. He found specks of blood or whatnot. But let's just presume, since we have no blood leaving the scene, we have no shoe prints or anything. Let's say the suspect clean there. Why is the bathroom not checked? Why are the drains not? Why is they're not using the black light for anything? We see where the scene of the crime is. We see right there, you've got blood spatter on the wall.
Yeah,
there's just so many questions I have.
I think that they think two people were there. Personally, I think that's how they're going to try to explain, and that this could have possibly been two people there. But there's no explanation. Like, this trial was just, I finally got through all of like the pages to read everything, but I was just blown away. And it's going to come all out, like breaking it all down. But it's sick. It's disgusting. And this guy did a way better job in depositions and knew shit and knew information. And then when it came to trial, just didn't fucking do it. Didn't do anything. So I believe that that's when I can't sit here and tell you that. I mean, that dude was in on it. In on the fact of, like, he's not going to help Joe. He did not defend Joe. These
definitely ineffective counsel.
But he did. Like, I just feel like
the other thing,
because he had the information. He had it in the depositions. He knew that Grimshaw left. You know what I mean? He knew he had Grimshaw lying, that Grimshaw in a deposition saying, no, I never left the scene, when he was processing it. Okay, so he knew that. And then when it came to trial, he doesn't even bring that up. Doesn't question anything to do with, why is it, 3 hours for you to do this? Or, what were you doing from 4:40 to 6:40? That never happens. And in fact, the questions that are asked are fucking disgusting, because it has nothing to do with anything. And I think he thinks that if your client doesn't know shit and not smart and a crack addict, that he's not going to know if I did a good job or not. And that's just pathetic. That's just horrible. And anybody that pays that guy a damn fucking dollar, Iowa's a one-party state, and I'll be calling him tomorrow on a live to ask him all about Joe, and to say, hey, do you remember that case you did? Well, guess what? I have a podcast, and I'm exposing everything that you and the police did. See you soon.
I will say that Joe did specific request. I don't know if his name was TF Ford or something, another attorney, to join the case before start of trial. Mr. Wapples is asked by the judge what his thoughts are, and it's stated to the judge that Joe believes that he could get a better defense having these two lawyers. Mr. Wapples says that he unnecessary and he's ready to proceed with trial, and he doesn't need any assistance. And so the motion was denied, allow additional counsel. The other thing that I want to say is that literally 2 weeks before the verdict came down from the jury, Wapples got off the case. So Joe was issued another attorney who they filed a motion for a continuance so that this attorney could catch up with what was going on, since he wasn't part of any of the trial, and that motion was also denied. Another thing was Joe was given you get 3 years to file your first appeal. Joe was not given any counsel by the state to have the ability to file that appeal, and was not given the assistance from the state until 5 years after the sentencing and the conviction, and then was told by the judge that essentially he waited too long. He had 3 years and he did not act upon that. So there's just a lot of injustice going on in this entire case.
Absolutely. I was going to show that one. Where was it? Right here. Oh, God, what a special individual this guy is. Right there.
Which one is this?
The detective. I located 2 partial prints in the kitchen on the floor on pieces of plexiglass that had been busted from the wooden door on the south side of the residence going into the porch area, which appeared to me to be the point of entry. He says that right here, the footprints were located on the pieces of plexiglass. There was one with a partial heel print and one with a partial sole print of the ball area of the shoe. One was located under a kitchen chair just to the north of the kitchen door and over to the west a little bit off the kitchen door. The other piece was found near the kitchen table, I believe, and both of those footprints were right side up. In other words, he says that the plexiglass and how could you tell this? By looking at it with a flashlight. Get the fuck. But meanwhile,
the other thing that
it's just he says he could see it when he did his actual report. He says that he could just see it. He didn't use a flashlight. In his deposition, he says he used a flashlight. Okay, and then
and this is the one
who's seeing it from the dining room.
Yeah, this is Grimshaw. This is the detective, and then he says
he's got really good
eyes, because that's a good, I want to say from the dining room to the table, it's good 20 feet that he could see on, I couldn't even see it in the video when they were looking over it. I couldn't see it. So
he said that where was it? He said there you go. It appeared to be an older door. Yes. How many pieces of plexiglass were on the floor of the kitchen? I believe there was 4 on the floor and 2 still in the door. And you collected all of those. Yes, I did.
Over an 8-hour period of time.
Yeah, yeah. And he talks about that then here too. He said, which is right here. Where's it at? He says right here, so did you attempt to compare those with the fingerprints of Mr. Cannon and Mr. Culp, like any of the fingerprints that they took there? But I wanted more about the when he says he was there all day. He says, yeah, he tries to lie about the search warrant. That we're going to get into that the next episode, so I'll pass by that. And oh yeah, here he asks them again about that. Let's see right there.
I've seen comment 8 hours to process the scene.
Oh no, they had the scene for a whole week. They had that scene for a whole week. That was just that day. Just that day was that many hours. They had the scene roped off for a whole week. They go back in there on the 9th, 10th, 12th, 13th. it's just it's open season. But this is just wild right here, where he asks him again. This is the deposition. When I went to Mr. Culp's residence and found the footprints or shoe prints on the plexiglass later on that day, I realized that it was the same type of shoe print that I had taken pictures of off of the envelope from the Wendy's burglary. This man is so good that he saw those prints and he just knew that they were from the Wendy's burglary because he took pictures of the shoe prints of Wendy's, not at the scene of Wendy's, but at the lab. He took pictures of pictures. Very bizarre. Have you ever heard of that?
No, I haven't ever heard of you being able to compare two crime scenes. I mean, I'm sure he had other calls from one crime scene to the next. I'm just very impressed with his abilities.
Yeah. And then he says, oh yeah, here we go.
The important thing to note here also is if you look at the video, if you guys go back and you watch the video and you see where there are 3 pieces of plexiglass underneath the kitchen table, and you can see exactly where they are in the video. You can also see from their recording that the door is here and the table is like over here. So you almost have to have walked in and then, diverted to the left to step on the plexiglass and then gone, back to the right to avoid hitting the chair. It's very interesting. The other thing I tried demonstrating time and time again, now mind you, I am not very athletic, but I could kick my foot up pretty high, and I tried to kick at a window at that height. That's pretty damn near impossible to kick it the way that it was done here, and not to mention the fact, why are we kicking the glass in if the door was unlocked? Like, that's the most interesting part, is that the deadbolt wasn't on, the door wasn't locked, the screen door wasn't locked. So why did you need to kick it in? You're creating a crime scene. The other thing, if you read the multiple reports from DPS, DCI, and Burlington Police, you have literally all of these people, Francis Murphy, Ronald or Wyman and his wife and the neighbors, and all of these people are literally still in the house while the police arrive. They've tampered with evidence that they admit to picking up the phone. Stupid things that I don't understand. The phone base is found in the dining room on the floor. The handle is found in the bed. No cord attached, yet I picked up the phone to call 911. How did you anticipate you were going to call? The other guy, I picked up the bat. The bat that they claim is bloody, has hair on the end of it, but we can't see the blood. I mean, I would think if he was bludgeoned with that bat, you are going to see blood on here. There's not going to be spatter. There's going to be a pool of blood somewhere. We don't see any of that. There's hairs on the edge of the end of the bat. They don't test them. They don't even test anywhere from the part where you hold. They don't test anything up, and they only test one side of the part that you hold on to, and then the base, the handle, which who holds the bat like that? I don't know. There's so many just convoluted things going on in this case. And why
here's a lie.
Pick up the bat?
I mean, how long did you stay at the crime scene? I was there approximately 9 hours. Did you ever leave the crime scene during that 9-hour period? I don't believe that I did, no. He says, no, he didn't leave. So that's a lie because he left to go to Dylan's restaurant to go interview the Dylan's owner. Remember? He says, oh, well, then this is what Mr. fucking amazing attorney says. In any event, if you had, someone else would have been placed at the scene, I assume. And he says, yeah. Like just helping him along the way there, just fucking softballing it up there for you. Yes, as a matter of fact, the whole time I was there, whether it was inside or out, blah, blah. Then he says, did anyone from DCI lab process the scene? No, I did the processing. Why would a detective do the processing of a scene? Why wouldn't the forensic team?
They did not have crime scene come out. They didn't have their forensic team come out. Now, I don't know how they do things now in Burlington, and it makes me sad to know that this is how they did it then. But because this was not a murder on site, it was an assault. I think it wasn't handled the way that they hopefully would have handled a homicide case. But we have no crime scene techs at this scene. We have people coming in and out. We have Greg Thompson being told to remove the crime scene tape and go ahead and fix the door. That the police have had to take the wooden strips off. We're going to let him go ahead and fix it. We also have no police recordings of. I have no 911 calls. Interview calls. I've got conversation on the jail phone. But when we ask for it, they say, oh, we're sorry, the phones weren't, like the recording wasn't working that day. But you captured it. Where is it? None of the interviews or depositions are recorded. They're just, they've got the person typing them up is there. And then other things that are concerning. The deposition of Greg Thompson, Joe is asked to leave and no longer participate in it. The deposition of
he was?
I believe Detective Kramer. So I believe it was Detective Kramer. Joe was not present for that period, that deposition, which is against his rights. Then with the deposition of Greg Thompson, he is present, but Mr. Wapples gets a phone call right at pretty much the beginning of the deposition, and he steps outside and comes back in and tells Joe that he's got to go take care of something, and he'll finish it up, and Joe needs to go. Now, mind you, Mr. Wapples is not responsible for getting Joe back to the jail. Okay, so there were sheriffs.
Wait,
there.
That was during Greg Thompson's?
This is Greg Thompson's deposition. Yes.
You don't think that that's suspicious?
So Wapples, well, it's absolutely suspicious. But
That's
my thing is, why? Say that again.
I think that happened during his for a reason.
Well, here's the thing. The deposition goes on, and it's pretty lengthy. So it's not like Mr. Wapples said, okay, we need to call it quits here. We'll reschedule it. No, they just sent Joe on their way with some, mediocre excuse. And then Greg Thompson doesn't testify in the actual trial. What the fuck is going on here? That's when
a defense attorney knows not to call somebody because of X, Y, and Z. And that's the only person that could say that. I mean, I can't imagine. Why aren't we calling Greg Thompson to the stand? Who allegedly.
Let's also take this into account. Up until this deposition, where Joe was only present for a short few minutes, Joe knew this Greg Thompson as Kenny Stone. This is right when he says to Mr. Wapples, well, wait a minute. Who did you say he is? Well, this is Greg Thompson. No. That's fucking Kenny Stone. So and then all of a sudden he gets this phone call and Joe's got to leave. Okay.
So what she means by that, everybody, is that Joe Cannon knew Greg Thompson as an alias called Kenny Stone. And so when he's saying me and Kenny and Noah went and did, this, he knows Greg Thompson as Kenny Stone. So he's saying that's, so Joe's sitting there in the
know
deposition.
who Greg Thompson is.
Yeah, he didn't know him as Greg Thompson. And so he tells, allegedly, Mr. Whipple-Wopple, Alan Wapples, that, wait, that's Kenny Stone. You would think that you'd maybe ask that question, right? Like,
well, I would presume so if we back up a little bit further, yes, Joe knew Kenny Stone / Greg Thompson from the Wendy's robbery. They were a part of that. But Kenny Stone, whatever you want to call him, had his own tree service company, TW Tree Service or whatever. That's how Joe met him. Joe was doing roofing with another guy and needed extra work, and Greg introduced himself to Joe as Kenny Stone, the owner of this tree service, and Joe started doing work for him. So he only ever knew him as Kenny Stone until he gets in this deposition, which he's quickly kicked out of, and he says, who the fuck is Greg Thompson? That's Kenny Stone. What are you guys talking about? And you would think that even though he gets whisked away and Mr. Wapples finishes it up, whatever, you would think at some point he would say, what is Joe talking about? Who are you?
Also, why isn't that, well, who else knows him as, Kenny, or who else knows him as Greg? Like, well, Noah was there with us. Noah knows, like, Noah can identify that guy and saying, yeah, he was with us at the Wendy's burglary. Because he's saying this whole time at those shoes, who do those shoes belong to? So I'm getting to the part where, like, I want to see
Kenny Stone.
Well, I don't know if he says it.
Belong to Kenny Stone.
I don't know if he says that. He says quote unquote
Joe
friend.
says.
So I gotta find that. I gotta find that part. So I'm looking to see where.
But
he
Joe's
says
wife.
that
Joe's wife. You look at her testimony. Joe's wife says those shoes belong to Kenny Stone. That's how they knew him as.
Yeah, they said. Well, they said that Kenny had slept over. But he's. But
I think
there's a huge, just total disconnect. But the people that are not disconnected, the police know that Kenny is Greg. Joe knows, but you have his attorney just acting like he doesn't know and he doesn't do anything about it. But meanwhile, he's saying that those aren't my shoes, and that's the person that actually has the shoe. That those are his shoes. But I don't know. I got to find out when Joe breaks this revelation to his lawyer, because in everything that I've gone through, I can't find that.
Joe did not know. We'll have to go back and ask him, but I'm pretty sure Joe doesn't because remember, he's kicked out of that deposition right when that happens. I believe you were on the phone with us when Joe says he did not conclusively find out that Kenny Stone is Greg Thompson until I told him 30 years later. He never got the confirmation because he was whisked away out of the deposition, and that was the end of it.
Look here. Yeah, that's just...
And I have to double check, but I'm pretty sure that only Joe and his wife knew him as Kenny Stone. Well, and I would have to say Noah would likely as well, because Noah was part of the robbery with them. I think we need to call Noah. That's who we need to get on the phone. our little Joe didn't even know that Noah was an informant. You know what's so sad? I wish I had the documents in front of me I could share with you guys, but what's so sad is on the search warrant, it states that this is all based off an informant. And it says on there that this informant has no reason to lie. This informant has done other cases for us and it's proved to be fruitful. This person has nothing to gain. And so these are the reasons, Judge, why you should trust our informant who is Noah Johnson, who is informing on the crime that he committed, right? So we know that he does have something to gain from this, and we know that he is. It says he's not a criminal. How many cases did we find against Noah prior to Joe's situation? I mean, there were pages. So they're going off of a dirty informant. That's how they get their search warrant.
Yeah, it's just, yeah. I want to know when Greg Thompson planned on beating the fuck out of Orly Culp. I want to know when that, if, you know.
Well,
I think the audience needs to stay tuned because I think that we can prove not only who the real killer is, but we can also prove what the motive was, how it was done, and none of this was done with, you know, having to involve any of these slimy detectives.
Yeah. Well, episode 3 next week. Miss Vargas, as always. I'll play that beginning again for you.
Pleasure to see you.
Pleasure. There you go. Check it out. Best line ever.
oh my gosh.
At Anamosa State Penitentiary in Anamosa, Iowa. You must listen to this entire message before entering a selection to accept this.
Tell them.
Thank you so much.
No, your change.
It's like 3 cents.
That's 3 cents that could bring us good luck today.
Okay. Put this here. Because I need my laptop to be able to. Your thing is on. Yeah, it's recording.
Is it okay
Can I not plug it in?
Is it okay if I record you in progress?
Stop fucking calling me that. How about that? So you want the verdict, the trial date, the verdict, all that